Representative William Straus of Mattapoisett.
Well, I'd like to think the enthusiastic applause were for me, but I have little illusion that it's because I'm the last of the reps. You have to be realistic in this place, or you should be. It's really an honor, as you've heard expressed throughout the day. And as I was sitting here, I didn't come with a prepared speech, but I had some notes. Gene insisted that he had to clear them first to make sure it wouldn't go on too long. I'm going to try and hold to that. I've crossed out a lot of things through the day to try and, yeah. I'm fair game, I think. It's fine. So what I wanted to do today has changed a little as I heard all the other speeches. And that's the beauty, if you can, of not having prepared text. You can react to the moment, what's happening in the room. And what I saw today, and I hope I add to that, is the rich experience, background, perspective, and ideologies that collectively members of this great body bring to this place, and why it's so wonderful to have the chance to serve here. And we heard that now in the 14, 15 or so people who've spoken. And if you are among those who got to take the time, invest the time, to hear all these different remarks about the different people we serve with, and to learn, even from people we've known well, worked with for a long time, things about them you didn't know, you'd realize how thoughtful a place this is, how hardworking it is, and how, for each of us, it's the special honor of a life. Now, I may have missed it, but in much of the recent news coverage, I've read about us and our friends in the Senate. I didn't hear those thoughts expressed. And I don't expect it, in all honesty. We know that, and perhaps, and I know this doesn't fit in the editorial rooms at some places, perhaps that's why when we go home to talk about what we've done, our constituents who know us best respond. Usually favorably, but not always. And so what I learned today, and I express as my farewell, is this great opportunity as elected members of the General Court that we have to realize other people's dreams. That's why we come here, not to promote ourselves, but to, in different ways, realize the hopes and dreams of the people we represent and the people in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So I come here today before you with just the greatest affection for this institution and how wonderful it is. Now, that doesn't mean they've all been happy times. I've been on the losing side of more than a few struggles. I jokingly, but maybe there's some truth in it, I do say to people that at different times I tried to destroy my career here. Sometimes I succeeded. I heard the gentleman from Brockton, I think it was earlier, refer to that that there are only 6 of us who walked into this room a number of years ago and cast votes for the leadership that we know was going to put us on the losing side. We knew it. Yet we came in here to do something that we thought was important and still is, which was keep our word. Now, some among those who cast those losing votes have, well, most have gone on to other things. Some have succeeded in other things. See, he's laughing. He knew. But that was an important lesson that only in my second or third term here informed me, as I've had the luck and the honor to continue for now 32 years as a member of this institution. And so that was one of the important things. I've got my Sarah Peak pen, and just knocking some things off the notes. And there are other things that I have as experiences here, but I want to cover some of the really fundamental things. As every speaker before me has said today, it is the support and the sacrifices of our family members who made this possible. We volunteered. We applied for this job. We get, if there's glory or not, we get the job satisfaction. But our family members, spouses, children, parents, close family members, they pay a price. And we all have to recognize that. So, like me, there's been an arc over time to how my family has progressed. When I was first sworn in 1993, my parents sat up there. They've moved on. But now I have grandchildren, and the family history continues. My children have grown up. When I was sworn in, they were 3 and 5. They're now in their 30s. I believe through the magic of this thing they're calling the internet, they're watching. My wife is watching as well. So I get to share this moment with them as a result. And I can't thank them enough for supporting me all these years in this job. I've also been blessed, as my other colleagues have said, with an extraordinary staff over the years. 22 different people, not because they didn't like the job and I couldn't keep them, but over 32 years, I've had a number of people come and work for me and move on. But everyone who knows me and works with my office knows that in particular, 2 people, Cindy Stevens, my chief of staff, and Steve Sylvia, have been with me for the longest time. Steve was just out of college when he came in my first year in 1993 to work for me and still does. And Cindy Stevens is, as she refers to herself, my dot girl. If you don't know the term, well, you can't really look it up, but just ask around. And she has worked hard for me as chief of staff and defended me all these years. And I thank them and all the others who have and continue to work for me. Now, I too have worked for or with 5 different speakers, 7 different governors. Each had their own take on things. But I wanted to also tell a story about Speaker Mariano. I think I've told enough people that he may have heard I was going around telling this story. But now I will officially make it really public. And now he's thinking, what is he doing? So, but it's a good story, and it's true. Last session, we passed major legislation which just to remind our friends in the press, the voters had an opportunity to overturn but did not, dealing with recognizing, for all sorts of reasons, the importance of something many of us think might be simple, driver's licenses. But we were in a meeting at one point early on. The bill was still pending in the committee. It was a meeting with the speaker and a group of the advocates who wanted it. And it became obvious at one point, at least to me, that the advocates may not have liked some of the things I was telling them and that I thought might be better in the bill and gain more votes so it would have greater support. We didn't know at the time how the then governor, so it's really 2 sessions ago, would react. So it really was important, even with a supermajority, to gain support for this. But it was clear that the advocates were trying to work around my role as committee chair. And at one point in the meeting, one of the advocates, I really can't remember who, said to the speaker, to Speaker Mariano, "We'd like to send you some drafts of the kind of language we would want." And this speaker, again, different from public perceptions of how effective speakers work with their members and with those outside, this speaker said to them without hesitation, "The only language I want to see, the only bill I want to be looking at is what comes from the House chair." Now, in a simple gesture but firm point, he was sending a signal that the committee system works here, it's supported by leadership, and if advocates, in that case, had a point to make it where the bill is now at the committee level. Things can change. I had no illusions that just because I might think it should be a certain way, that was the end of the story. No. But the process brings different views to bear, and the committee process can work. And this is a speaker that has supported that approach. And it always has, at the end of the day, the recognition, some don't appreciate it fully, the recognition that not everyone gets their way. I'm always amused by some who think the legislature did a bad job because they didn't get their way. It's a nice thought, but this is an institution of 160 people, all with different conflicting views and approaches. And the one vote that you have may not be enough. What's more important is the ability to communicate with others and bring them around, if you can, if your ideas merit it, to the thoughts maybe that you had. So I want to thank this speaker for coming in and supporting that institutional process. Speaker DeLeo was also very helpful, very encouraging on what at times were difficult transportation issues. Speaker DeMacy, during one of those times when I was trying to, early on, destroy my career, but he was very generous. He gave me a lot of time to reflect on it. He reduced my job demands. But over time, because you keep working with the people that you're supposed to work with as a legislator, he gave me some additional roles, and that was very helpful, and I always appreciated that from him. Speaker Finneran, who at first also gave me time to reflect, ultimately recommended to the Democratic caucus that I chair the Election Laws Committee. And as it turned out, in some twist of irony, or ironic twist, that session, the major piece we did was we changed what had been the state law in Massachusetts, because everyone thought our senator was about to be president. we changed the way that vacancies in the position of the U.S. Senate were filled. Now, the governor at the time, under our, we had at the time apparently this government exchange program with the state of Utah. So they sent us in the exchange program a governor, and he was here for 4 years. So he did everything possible to fight that change in the law. And I remember one of the minority party members of the Joint Committee on Elections was a former colleague of ours, a former state senator, and a member of the Joint Committee on Election Laws. And in the committee, he did everything possible to kill that bill for special elections. Now, as fate would have it, he was the first beneficiary and became a U.S. Senator. I haven't run into him lately, but I wonder if he's happy that he failed in his efforts to kill the bill. He probably owes us a debt of gratitude for that. But that was one of those memories, how things that we plan don't always work out that way. Still a good piece of legislation, but it doesn't play out the way people think it will work out. Now, I learned from those experiences how to work in the committee system and to come and appreciate it. And so I was grateful also to Speaker Finneran and also Speaker Flaherty for some initial appointments to committees that were important to my district, in the environmental area especially, being on that joint committee. And that was something I always appreciated from him. Now, what we depend on here are the working relationships. And I'm reluctant to add or to describe a specific list of pieces of legislation because we've all learned that the successes we have are because we bring others along with us. Paul Schmidt mentioned South Coast Rail. That only happened because not one person was able to deliver that for a region of the state, but because all of us working together could realize that. Now, I may have had at different times in different settings the ability to move it forward, and for that opportunity, I'm very appreciative. But as others have said today, this is not a solo job. We cannot accomplish these things on our own. Those who act alone have a different role for themselves in the legislature, and they may enjoy it and they may intend for it to happen. But if, as I said earlier, our idea hopefully is, in my phrase, to realize other people's dreams, at least I think it's my phrase, then you work together with your other colleagues. And let me just say this about my colleagues. We have a local delegation, which I am so proud of, in the greater New Bedford area, in the South Coast area, and also, it's been mentioned, our Cheeseburger Club, which was a group of really lunch companions, and we still very much miss former Rep. Steve Kulik every day for what he brought to the institution and our little group. But I want to say about the minority party, just to segue. People have talked about crossing the aisle and working on a bipartisan way. One of the quirks of this place, which it wasn't changed under Brad, but under a prior minority leader, when I came here, Republicans and Democrats sat throughout the room. In the 4th Division, I was with a group of Plymouth County Republicans, and we interacted as members, not as members from different parties. Now, Brad doesn't often ask me for advice, and he's probably not about to start. And I'm not trying to interfere in any other party's caucus. But it wasn't such a bad thing, because it physically let us know that we were all just reps serving together. Because after all, they can always look in your direction as to whether it's a up or a down anyway. But at least they interact with each other, and we do interact with each other all the time, and that is one of the great things about serving here, is those divisions that others have had in other parts of the country have not affected us. And so I would say working with the minority party here has been a success. One of my closest friends as a colleague was George Peterson during the time he served here. And again, during those quiet times of reflection, when particularly in Speaker Finneran's early years, I can say this now, if it wasn't for George, many of my amendments would not get through because they were offered under his name. But it was all in a good cause for environmental things and fisheries issues that George and I cared about. And it was able to be done because we trusted each other as colleagues. And that's something we should never forget. I don't want to forget the staff here. Steve James has been a wonderful clerk to work with, always willing to spend lots of time discussing the rules and pointing things out. I will miss you. You will no doubt be missed. Chip and Mike, we couldn't do without them. The Rangers, but also the court officers. And especially, I call you my court officer. You've been great working with the committee, and I'll never forget how helpful you've been. I want to thank the gentleman from the North End. I had little to do with it, but his first vice chairmanship was as vice chair for me in the Transportation Committee. I don't think you learned anything from me. You knew everything. You knew you had the skills, and your path to success was clear even then. And I thank you for the support and the assistance you've given me when you've moved on to other assignments. Greatly appreciated. I thank you so much. I will say this. I've have these notes, and I apologize if I miss any. I too will miss the lady from Wareham. Our districts were right next to each other. We shared many issues. If you were to go just by what you saw in terms of red and green lights, there were probably few, if any, issues where we voted the same. But for our region and part of the state, on a number of issues involving fisheries and agriculture and different transportation issues, she was wonderful to work with, and it's a real loss on so many levels that she has been taken from us, and we won't get to talk with her again. So with that, I look out here, and in my closing, I see everyone who's here, who I'm so proud to work with, and I also see the faces of so many people over 30 years that I've worked with. Some are with us still, some are not. Many are not. But it's that constant change in this institution, and I think, as Pat Haddad said, it's the moment, whether we anticipate it, plan it, or not, that we all have to prepare for, which is when we will no longer be members of the General Court. I love this place. I always promised myself that if I could, I would leave it while I still loved it and loved the work, and I've accomplished that. I will miss this place. I will miss you all, and I thank you for being my colleague. Thank you.